So, let's have a little kick-off by taking some perspectives on the problem. And I think what we want to do is really try and dive into the challenges for this region and the practicalities of the partnership. So, Charo, maybe we could come to you first. An established... Oh, and maybe we need some microphones. That's another good point. We have a couple more.
It's okay, keep it here.
Thanks.
Keep it for us.
Wonderful.
But the sound.
Hopefully they're all on. Are they? Is it switched on? Oh, you've got one as well. That's right. No, I'm okay.
This is for you.
That's just for you.
Oh, hello.
It's not working. Okay, this microphone is not.
No,
I think that one might be.
So it seems to think it's on, but give it a go.
Oh, we can hear something there. Very good.
Hello. Yeah. Seems to be working.
Charo, you work for Emirates NBD,
That's right.
established institution, quite ambitious plans and a bit of a track record in innovation and partnerships. Tell us a little bit about your perspective on the need for partnership. Why can't organisations do it, or why aren't they doing it on their own anymore? What's changed about the landscape?
See, from an incumbent's perspective, right? I mean, we've had a very long journey of experimenting with models. So so we thought we could do it internally. We had our research labs, we had our innovation labs, and so on and so forth. But I think what it comes down to is very simple. We cannot fight on all fronts, or we cannot be looking at the entire spectrum of our offering all at one time. And I think that's one of the key reasons why we thought that partnerships or collaborations would are probably the way forward. And that's the long and short of it. I mean, that is exactly why we thought that we should be doing that. And along the way, we've experimented with various models. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. Yeah.
Good, excellent. Ahmed, maybe we can come to you a little bit. Talk some very interesting stuff about what you're doing as fintechs. Clearly, Emirates Post is, we know what the postal service is like. We don't necessarily think of postal services as places for innovation. What do you think is the opportunity, and what's the reasoning behind the motivation behind fintechs originally?
Well, I think similar to any other post services or post services companies in Europe and other parts of the world, it made a lot of sense that since you have a lot of retail and reach to customers, to combine that with providing financial services. And that was the reason why in 2005, Emirates Post Group invested in Wall Street, the company.
Yes.
But then they saw the potential how this kind of financial services can grow. And then they invested more into this and expanded into finding or being in the money transfer or money remittance business. And then after that is like, in the recent years, fintech became the new things that they want to do. When it comes to Emirates Post Group, I think for the postal, they have their own kind of technology and what they need to do, and the mindset of having applications and technology that can serve the customer in a better way and improve the experience. Similarly with the financial services. So this is like a same mindset, but somehow in a different industries, but they are related to each other. And that was, I think, the biggest motive behind it.
Okay, thank you very much. David, we'll turn to you. London Stock Exchange Group, not sort of strictly a fintech company per se, but certainly a data company. How do you fit into this sort of new world of different parts of the ecosystem, big, small, innovator, incumbent, working together?
But now.
Thank you. And by the way, if it's a little quiet, then please just kind of throw your hands
yes,
up.
Please,
and say
yes, it's
too quiet. And if it's too loud, then
the sound is not great.
I'm probably saying the wrong thing, so I'll leave. But let me just give you a little bit of perspective about. Louder, yeah. A little bit of perspective about the London Stock Exchange Group, right? So, when you look at the revenues of the business, we're a 6.4 billion pound a year revenue company. But I think a lot of people kind of have a misconception about what that business is. You just said a data business. But when you think of the traditional London Stock Exchange, that's a tiny proportion of the overall business. It's about 4% of the overall revenues. Whereas if you look at our partnership revenue as a business, that's about a 1.4 billion pound a year business for the company, right? So that's essentially telling you that our partnerships ecosystem in the London Stock Exchange Group is 10 times the size of the traditional exchange business that everybody knows us for. So, I mean, that's just a starting point to think about that. But where do we fit in the ecosystem? Most of what we do, as you just said, is we provide data to the markets. And frankly, we can't do that without the fintech community and the technologies that drive that data and the adoption within the relevant ecosystems that we operate. So for us, we kind of, I mean, you say we're not a fintech. It's funny, parts of our business consider themselves a fintech. There's other parts of our business that are extremely traditional, and then there's other parts of it which are completely reliant on revenues that are driven through partnerships. So, I mean, I'll be happy to talk a little bit later on in terms of how we consider partners, what we really think about, you know, what we're looking for when we're thinking about fintechs. But you know, just by way of introduction, I head up the strategy for the risk intelligence business globally for the London Stock Exchange Group, which is just one of a small number of the business operations we have. And within that, I look after our global partnership strategy, but I also look at our sort of M&A channel. So who do we want to invest into? What's our build, partner, buy strategy? So for me, fintech is absolutely fundamental to the growth of our organisation. I'll stop there.
Good. Thanks for that, David. Tan, I'd like to bring you in at this point. I think before we started, we were having a little bit of a conversation around your experience over the last few years working in Asia with different financial services organisations and that kind of cultural shift they've been going to. Tell us a little bit about what the journey's been like, for you as a business and what OneConnect does. Tell us a little bit about that. But what's that journey been like from, since sort of 2018 through to 2022, and the kind of reaction that you're now getting from traditional organisations when you talk to them about collaboration or innovation?
Hi everyone. Can you hear me?
Not really.
I can't hear myself neither.
I know,
can I hear you?
The sound is appalling, I'm afraid.
I hope I had on it.
It is on, I think.
It is on.
Yes.
Okay, I'll just repeat the question because I didn't hear it properly. I don't know if you heard it properly. Okay, so it's basically what OneConnect is doing, as well as our journey between 2018 and how today we feel we can repeat our success in Southeast Asia to UAE. So OneConnect, we are the fintech arm of China Ping An Group. I do not know whether you know Ping An. Just a show of hands, who knows Ping An? Okay, bro.
Ping An, yeah.
Okay, those are my people. Okay, so Ping An, we're the largest insurer in China. Yeah, and basically what we do is a little bit similar to what Ahmad shared, right? So Ping An Insurance has our own technology and patents, and we basically then provide these solutions to digital banks in Southeast Asia. So we have been in Southeast Asia for 5 years now, and just last week we launched our UAE entity to start the solutions here. So a lot of the solutions we initially started were targeting at teaching Southeast Asia how to do digital banking with experience from China. Our solutions also comes from China. Maybe a couple of examples, like for example, unsecured lending, micro lending, buy now, pay later, exactly what you needed. Those were, and Ping An solution is all about using data of the ecosystem and making sure that the futuristic digital banking solutions can handle the data through a very agile API platform. So basically our solutions are lending primarily, a very kind of modern app for banking as well as core banking solutions. We've done 5 years, we're servicing 28 financial institutions, 60% are conventional traditional banks, 40% are greenfield digital banks. And this time round, launching in UAE, we're very excited. We feel that the pace, everybody is telling me UAE is slow, but we feel the speed coming up. For sure, we know that 5 years ago, the deal cycle to actually build a digital bank, for the bank to decide, is about 18 months to 2 years. Today, the banks in Southeast Asia take 6 to 9 months. And we know that we will be there for UAE.
That's excellent. Here. Perfect. Thanks. Amazing. That's great, Tan. We've been joined by our 6th panelist who unfortunately got stuck in the traffic, so welcome, Ahmed. Has your microphone working? and then we'll come to you. Emirates Development Bank, established institution, very much sort of part of the old, if you can call it, the old style financial services landscape here. also quite committed to the innovation journey. What's your view on partnerships, and how has that evolved over the last couple of years since you've embarked on this journey of trying to engage with innovation and engage with innovators?
So, Salam alaikum. Thank you very much. It's been crazy getting over here, but I'm so happy to be here. The energy is fantastic today.
Sound is not.
Oh, can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Let me get this closer. So, Salam alaikum, and thank you very much for having me. It's been a bit crazy getting over here, but the energy is fantastic, and I'm so happy to be here at GITEX. So, thank you for the invite. So, Emirates Development Bank is a bit different than the traditional banks. We are a development bank, truly so. So, we are focused, our mandate is completely on economic impact. It's not on maximizing shareholder returns like a traditional institution or bank. About a year and a half ago, when we launched our new strategy to focus on the economic development of the country, there was a very specific thing that was told to me by all of our partners. So we work with partners on both the federal and local level. Federal government entities, local government entities, and a lot of private sector entities. One common issue that they all faced was account opening, bank account opening, which I know that the startup community that's here today, and probably many that are out there, face this common issue. So we as a development bank, we're not looking to empire build. So when we went out to find a solution, we were very happy to work with fintechs on developing a solution. And Emirates Development Bank's digital platform is completely built on an ecosystem of partnerships with fintechs. So where account opening with traditional banks takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months, and a lot of times you can end up with a no actually, going through the AML and KYC processes of traditional banks, we commit to open up bank accounts within 48 hours, and actually within 24 hours is typically when they're fully activated. That's one example of a partnership with a fintech, many of you probably have heard of it, called Yap. We also are working very closely with multiple other fintechs on the different products and services that we also offer. So we work with another fintech that's known here in the UAE as Beehive on the direct lending. So other than opening up of bank accounts within 24 hours, we commit to up to 5 million dirhams in loans to startups, because our digital platform is for startups and small businesses. Up to 5 million dirhams in loans with an answer in 5 days. So in 5 days, you get a clear yes or no. Everybody in the startup community knows the number one issue that they face when it comes to the financial sector is speed. So regardless of the actual product or service, it's the speed of service. So we commit to the speed aspect of it. Now, all the products and services that we're working on our roadmap, again, it's all in partnership with fintechs to provide direct services very much custom tailored for the startup community. UAE Pass, Departments of Economic Development, all of it is being digitally tied. We as EDB play the role of the bank, which is essentially the ledger. And that's what we believe going into the future. Many traditional banks should follow this model.
Fantastic. That's great, Ahmed. Thank you very much. Beverly, last but by no means least, and I have to say it's actually quite refreshing. We've got a panel with with half the constituents are women, so that's really something and nice to see. That's not why you're here necessarily. Tonomus is a very interesting sounding company. I'm not sure anybody will know what it is yet. I think you're here partly to kind of kick off the process of launching the company.
Yes.
As a kind of big, I suppose really a big tech, pure play big tech company, what are you looking for in terms of partners, and what's your take on the role that sort of innovative finance might play in helping do some of the things that you want to do as you explain what it is that the company does?
Absolutely, thank you. Hey, so for those of you who don't know what Tonomus is, because you shouldn't, because we launched only a week ago. Sorry, louder?
Yep.
Can you hear me? I'm a soft talker, so I apologize. Okay, so I'll try to talk louder. So a week ago we launched Tonomus, but Tonomus is the first wholly owned subsidiary of NEOM. So if you've seen NEOM out of Saudi Arabia, then you will know that we are the promise envisioned, basically. We're the first standalone business. It's a worldwide subsidiary, a conglomerate of technology companies, and we are nothing but a conglomerate of our partners. So first of all, we can't survive nowhere in the world without our fintech partners, without the banks, without the exchanges, without everything that's actually, I probably need to be partners with every single person on this panel. So please don't leave without trying to partner with me. But what our goal is and how we use our ecosystem and partners is to do two things. One is to take these large businesses, right, and to create technology solutions which are underpinned a lot of times by the finance industry, by a local government entity, by a region. Then secondarily, to create ventures, and every venture, of course, is a small business, which needs 48-hour turnaround and opening our bank accounts. So, you know, we're hoping that over the next 4 years, we have 90 standalone ventures. We have multiple partnerships, and all of that requires the services and also the ecosystem that's being created in the GCC, right? The whole thing for all of us is that we have an ecosystem of all the different people you need to have creative, successful, progressive businesses and to be able to bring that skill set in the region. And one other thing about this right now is I heard a little bit earlier about, you know, the speed of execution. I will tell you, for me right now, I've never seen anybody move faster than in the GCC. So I'm impressed. This is my first time, my first 2 years in the GCC, and I've never seen anything like it, and I can't wait to partner with all of you.
Fantastic, great. Do we have any viewpoints? We've got quite a lot of innovators, fintechs in the audience. Does anybody have any sort of particular questions that they want to ask at this point? Please raise your hand. Somebody will bring you a microphone if you do. But use this opportunity. We've got a very senior, high-level group of people here. So please, you know, if you want to ask questions, please try and engage. I think we have to move a little bit on to the practicalities of this. Maybe we can start with you, Ahmed, on the practicalities of partnership as you've moved now into fintechs and sort of separate off from the Post group. You know, obviously, that creates in itself that whole activity will create lots of opportunity for you. What sort of things are you looking for from partners, and what are some of the practicalities for you in terms of what you look for and how you make the partnership a success? Given that obviously you're a relatively large company, and innovators quite often can be, you know, generally speaking, are going to be smaller businesses.
Sure. Well, I think within any business, any industry, you will always have to work with partners, and we have done that in the past. When you look at your IT system, it's all made by partners. How to sell to customers, you need to deal with some partners, but I think companies taking that to next phase, and that's where it's more important and at the same time more difficult. So you want to have partners that can help you in creating some products together. So your customer offering goes together with a partner. And this is a bit different. This is not that easy. You need to collaborate. You need to have your team working with their team. Sometimes they come from two different cultures, right? Then you need to have your system ready to accommodate their system.
Absolutely.
An example that I have, that we've been in touch with an artificial intelligence company to be working with us, and after 2 years we discovered that our system is not ready for them to plug in, and we work together. At the same time, there are some partners that you can work with that can create some efficiency, some improvement.
Yeah.
So there are different ways you can deal with partners. What's important now and what's more demanding is to find a partner that can help you in improving your top line, your customer experience, and create real efficiencies that can all be translated into your P&L and see the benefit out of that.
Yeah. Has that got harder, would you say, over the years? Not necessarily speaking from fintechs, but from your experience as a banker, does that model make it harder to be commercially successful from your experience?
I think it's harder to work within, but if it's successful, I think it develops and generates much more value for the bank. I think for whether the bank or another financial institution, because then you kind of improving and going much faster when it comes to go-to-market compared to doing things on your own.
Yeah, fantastic. Shahri, perhaps we can come to you at this point also. I don't know if you could hear Ahmed, but I will. I won't use his words, but I'll sort of redact slightly. Ahmed was talking very much around some of the challenges, culture, integration, and what it is that the ingredients of making a successful financial partnership, fintech innovation partnership. What from your Emirates NBD is obviously it's a bank that was Emirates Bank merged with NBD, so clearly before the fintech thing kicked off, there were system integration things to be dealt with. What's your experience like working with partners, and how are you scoring the partners when you start to engage with them? How are you deciding? And then from your perspective, what is it that's making those how do you make them successful? How do you manage that success?
So within Emirates NBD, partnerships is quite wide, right? I mean, fintechs is definitely one. We also work very closely with the government and the corporates. So we have an operating model set for each. And specifically when it comes to fintech, this journey is not new. Earlier on, you asked me about the innovation journey of Emirates NBD and what we do internally. So, let me connect the dots here. So, about a few years ago, we embarked on our very own journey of launching a digital-only bank for millennials, which is Liv. Liv became sort of the ground zero for us to start innovating and partnering, with different fintechs and different startups to be able to take some of these value propositions, new business models out into the market for our customers, right? So that we learned a lot through that journey. And today what we have is a very matured model. We call it the seed. So it's scout, engage, evaluate, and deploy. So it's a very, very systematic model that we deploy, whether we're directly scouting for fintechs or whether we're partnering up with accelerators across the world. We have partnerships there as well. So we typically have a very we have about a 4 to 5 weeks period of scouting when we have a need or an opportunity or a challenge that we receive from our internal stakeholders, and then we go ahead and scout. We're very clear with, to mitigate some of the risks that we have faced from our learnings in the past. We only work with, for example, Series A and above, so to speak, somebody who already is working in the region because, the regulations here, data not leaving the country, all of these are some challenges that we've learned the hard way. There are some really exciting fintechs out there, but then we cannot work with them, due to some of these constraints. So we go through that journey, we evaluate, we engage with them to understand their propositions, and then we bring in the senior stakeholders to see, if there is a match. Because I think at the core, what we do is match make, right? We understand what the bank needs, we understand what the fintech is offering, and it's our job to sort of, play that quasi, matchmaker, business development, sales, all of that together to be able to sell that internally. So we do that, and we do something called the POV, which is a proof of value. That is a very good way to sort of evaluate. We have 2 sandbox instances within the bank, and that is one component that we put in place to see and test the proposition out, right? So test fast, fail early, and we've really embraced that. We were one of the first banks to actually have an API sandbox. So that's the evaluate part. So we actually test out the propositions in the sandbox, and then if all goes fine, then there is a deployment that we go towards. So it's a long journey, but the journey is long so that we don't fail at the very end. If we fail, then we fail fast, right? So I hope I answered your question.
That's wonderful, Charu. That sort of fail fast element. I mean, that's been talked about, a lot in all innovation circles, particularly in banking over the last decade. What's that like in practice, though, to get the staff to really kind of think, actually, yes, it's okay to fail. We're in large financial institutions are about security, stability, being there for the long term. And yet here you are talking about sort of things that don't work. So what does that look like? So
it's really interesting, right? What you read in the press and the media are only the successes, and the successes are very few. There are way many failures, that we go through to come up with these successes. So we've had many failures. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we were embarking on a very exciting project, and we had confirmed that we would go ahead and integrate with them at least for a proof of value. But when we deep dive, I think one of the things that my fellow panelists analyzed, also and commented on, we analyzed that our systems don't work together, right? So it was a really good way to sort of test fast and fail early with a deep dive. Many times you don't invest that much time in the initial days, so we were able to do that. But as an organization from the bottom, from the top down and even bottom up, I think we embrace failures really well. We've experimented with, for example, one of the other things that we were talking about earlier, my fellow panelist was talking about opening accounts really quickly, and we've experimented a lot in that space. How do you make KYC easy and so on and so forth? So we've experimented with a couple of startups to make, that entire process seamless. We experimented, we failed, we started again with someone else, we experimented, we failed, but today we have a solution that works, right? So I think you've got to, with every failure you learn so much, and I think the key is not to be able to repeat those mistakes, and I think we do that pretty well, I have to say. We have an appetite for failure.
Excellent, that's exciting to hear. Ahmed, perhaps I can come to you. I don't want to put you on the spot about the failures, but you were certainly talking about your success with Yap payments recently over the last couple of years, and some of the other things that you've been doing. How are you going out to the market and saying, actually, this company is a good fit for us? How are you doing what Charu talked about, that matchmaking?
So just to clarify, it's a year. So we've launched our platform in September of last year, and it took us approximately 2 months to launch, which I think, again, is an issue that needs to be addressed by banks in general. These long builds where they take years and years and then have very little to show for it. Working directly with fintechs, you can actually get products and services directly to the market, to the end users that are needed. Now, how we find, let's say, the best fit is very clear from our mandate. So we are here to serve the ecosystem when it comes to startups and small businesses. So when we look at fintechs, we look at what fintechs offer what products and services that will end up serving the startup community, the small business community. So we're very focused. In the end of the day, all we're looking for is which of these products and services are the best fit. We, in essence, are the platform, and we have the customers on the other end. So we have about 2,000 plus startups so far in the past year that are using this digital platform. And the fintechs that partner with us have to have something that has been tried, tested, and proven.
Right.
So essentially, it's already in the market.
Yep.
And then we look at what is that value-added service or product that we can bring onto the platform. We end up negotiating on behalf of the entrepreneurs and small business owners who are using our digital platform. So we as a development bank are playing the role of a development bank, ensuring that that ecosystem has access to the financial sector and the services and products that are available to them. So in many ways, we've shifted the, let's say, trial and error away from integration with systems to what actually works in the market. So for us, let's say, proof point is when we launch a service or a product, what is the uptake? So our link with the fintech, for example, on the financing piece, we just went live with that end of August, so about a little over a month ago. We've already done over 50 million dirhams worth of loans through that system in a month's time. So that's, for us, a success. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean that that is the only fintech that we're going to work with on lending. Because again, we are agnostic. We're happy to work with any fintechs that offer value-added products and services to the end users and the clients. So the way that we define which fintechs we work with, we have a product roadmap. We look at the products and services that we're looking to have launched this quarter, next quarter, the quarter after, and so on. And then we approach the right players in the market, and we work with them in order to provide those services through our platform.
Great. So just a quick follow-up question, if I may, on that. I mean, you said, the success of that kind of initial launch, the 50 million dirhams that from the get-go, if you like, that implies that you also need to look at a certain level of resiliency, of robustness of the companies that you partner with, doesn't it? So, how do you, was that something that you learned, or what is it that you look for to make sure that, when you press the button, you flick the switch, the thing starts working, the service is being sold to the market, things work and the customer gets what they think they're going to get?
So this might sound a bit controversial, but it really isn't.
Good.
My
we
definition.
like that.
Okay. So my definition of a bank versus a fintech. Your technology partner, a partner, real partner, someone who's working with you in order to provide a value-added service or product to the end user. They will have always faster, better way of providing those services and those products. But a bank will always be a bank, and what a bank is, in the end of the day, is a ledger. So we will always be the ledger. So the financing is actually on our balance sheet. We are the ones that are putting forth the 50 million dirhams, and we pass on to the fintech our credit underwriting standards to ensure that they are following a certain standard that is acceptable to us. But they go and they do the legwork with the end users. So the end users, when they apply through the digital platform for the lending, the credit underwriting process is actually done in partnership with Beehive. Beehive does it, and we ensure that they're meeting a certain quality of standard. But we are funding the balance sheet in the end of the day, and really a bank will always be needed with any financial products in those sorts. Transactional, a little bit less so, because when it's a transactional product or service, you can really have the technology that you focus on, that they can take the lead. But when it comes to a financial product or service, there will always have to be a bank in the background.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Tan, maybe we can come to you as a, being at the receiving end, trying to kind of sell into financial services organizations. What's been your experience of organizations, of incumbent banks, when they come to you to partner? What does that look like? And how complex is the process? How has it changed? And what are you seeing, in this region versus Southeast Asia, where you're, where the core of your business has been so far?
Okay, you can hear me?
Yep, just
Okay.
a bit closer if you can.
Okay, all right, you can hear me. The question is whether or not, what does OneConnect see in terms of traditional banks versus digital banks, and how the experience is different. So I'll tell you our simple math. Servicing a digital bank is 3 times less effort than servicing a traditional bank, right? And in a lot of times, we don't start with a partnership, honestly speaking. We are a service provider, right? So we are a technical service provider, but it has to evolve into a partnership. Why? Because our tech is different, and the bank needs to first recognize that you have a tech that they needed and can't build on their own. Second is that they need to learn it over time, because the solution is not just a software. It takes much more than software to win, right? So you will need to enhance your ecosystem connections. You will need to understand the AI components, and the banks wants to learn these AI solutions because it is a journey, right? So if you take us as a tech vendor and stay as a tech vendor, then probably you will not go through that learning journey. And I think a lot of banks are coming from perspective of we are able to transform with them over time, and it takes time. For a traditional bank, typically it will take 3 years to complete your transformation journey. For a greenfield license, we could go live with the entire banking build in about 10 to 12 months, right? But for a traditional bank, it will be a 3 years journey.
That's very nice. So you talked at the beginning about how the sales cycle has contracted. You know, it's gone from 18 months down to 6 or 9 months, I think you said. Has that relationship, that ability to build the relationship, has that also got quicker and easier?
Yes, we have learned a lot in terms of how to transform a bank with legacy systems, with a lot of existing customers. As a tech company ourselves, we have done big bangs in terms of replacing 10, 12 systems at the same time. This journey is probably the shortest and also the cheapest, but the most impact to your customers, which is may not be the route we would recommend. We have also done core banking shifts in over a journey of 3 years in terms of building a bank within a bank and then hollowing out the core over time, which might be a better journey for the traditional bank. The last one is that we replace everything from front end to back end over a span of 3 years, which is also a very recommended choice. First, replace your app. Second, replace your omni-channels integrated. Then go to your lending systems before you touch the core, which is a good journey. And I think for OneConnect, we prefer that the bank takes a journey with us rather than one solution with us, because our solutions are integrated to tap on the ecosystem, and the bank will only realize the full advantage of taking the tech stack as a whole.
We hear a lot of we've spoken already, but we hear a lot about the institutions having to transform their culture. Clearly, for you to build a relationship with a large, old-fashioned traditional bank, have you also had to change your culture to kind of retrofit to match the culture of large traditional banks?
So the good thing about OneConnect is we are part of Ping An, and Ping An is the largest insurer in China. We are also one of the largest bank in China. We believe you need domain knowledge to service the financial institutions. And we started OneConnect with 50% from Ping An Bank and 50% from the technology sector. Right. Because you can't take all the technologies passionate people, we call them wolves. Wolves are hungry, they are aggressive, they want to do things fast. It also comes with some risk. We call the bankers lambs. Lambs are prudent, then they are careful, but cruel. It's needed. And we needed a culture that's a blend between the wolves and the lambs. Right. Which it took us a while to get there, but today I think the mix is perfect.
Nice, I like that. Beverly, moose and lambs.
I've become a wolf.
That's possibly for another time, but.
So I was sitting here thinking about it, and from our perspective, I'm listening to everybody talk, and there's so many elements of the ecosystem.
A little bit.
Can't hear me? There's so many of the elements of the ecosystem that we're providing. So we're the cognitive solutions behind that. We're the AI behind that. And it was making me think, so recently, my business that I have with my husband, it was broken into. And because of AI and because of cognitive solutions and because of the new services that everybody on stage are integrating into their systems, not only were they able to tell that the checking pattern that was deposited into my bank for withdrawal was something that I had never done before. They received a bunch of typed up checks from me, but I always handwrite my checks. And so the AI and the cognitive learning that they're building into the systems through their microservices actually saved my business hundreds of thousands of US dollars.
Right.
So that was amazing, right? So that's one of these microservices. And so what we're doing is a lot of the ventures that we're doing right now as part of the partnerships that we're doing are surrounding these types of things. So from a data privacy, from a risk management, from a big issue we have right now is for all of us on stage, where are our employees coming from? Right? And how are we working in a worldwide environment and getting the best talent to do this when we can't necessarily have it in the city that we're sitting in? So how do you create that, even a metaverse experience where everybody can work together and create these different things in the different parts of the ecosystem?
Fantastic.
So I would say that brings lambs and wolves together, and we probably need a new animal.
Yes, we'll have to come up with a portmanteau word, push them together. We'll come to the partner bit sort of in the sort of final section, the final few minutes of the session. I wonder though, from you're not a fintech company, but you will be probably looking to engage with financial services and fintech in some way. So what are you looking for? Or what might you be looking for?
Yeah. So actually, there's two things that we're looking for. One are the ideas, right? So one of the things that we do is we have a similar process to the fintech companies where what we do is we ideate and we come up with amazing ideas. We take those ideas into incubation where for several weeks we go out to the customer base and to the potential stakeholders and we look at, is this incubatable? Is it something that people would really buy? And then we build it and we do massive iterations. I call it the MacGyver. I don't know, for those of you who've never seen MacGyver, he can do anything with some wire and some duct tape. And so we do that version of a build, and then we move it into acceleration and scale, right? So we take it through those 5, and as we're doing that, we're really looking at any type of idea, and especially right now, as it relates to cryptocurrency, as it relates to different types of financial technologies, as it relates to risk management, and especially data privacy. Those are areas that we're actively incubating. So what I need are ideas, and what we offer for those ideas is I'm currently hiring as well, and so anybody that has their idea accepted also gets a great opportunity to be part of a new venture. Great.
Well, look, this is your opportunity either to meet Beverly, meet the other panelists here. If any of you have got questions, please raise your hands. Raise your hands now. We've got a few more minutes to run, and then we will have to move on to the next session. David, perhaps we can come to you. Based locally, a large company in your own right within the sector, working with different parts of the value chain here in the region. What's your experience been like of working with the marketplace in the Gulf and the wider MENA region, and is it changing? Is it getting easier to work and talk and engage people for your opportunities here?
Yeah, probably relatively well positioned to answer that, because I was out here from 2013 to 2019. Spent 6 years. Worked very closely with Emirates NBD, a number of the organisations. Then I went back to London for the last few years, and then I just relocated back over here again. I think there's a misconception about how much of a difference there is between the regions globally in terms of what's going on. What you get is some traditional sectors that operate in traditional ways. But one of the funny things I think about in this region is virtually every fintech infrastructure is built on the cloud. Yet I go and talk to organisations who tell me about all the things that they want to do and everything they're excited about and how they've got a fintech hub and how they do this and Sandbox. And then I ask them about their cloud infrastructure or their cloud strategy, and they say, well, the legislation means that I can't adopt X, Y, and Z. And so I just, kind of, if you want to talk about that, there are still a few logistical sort of challenges around that. But when it comes to sort of interacting with fintechs, we don't regionalize that. That's a global strategy for what we do in terms of the risk mitigation. So any fintech that we're going to work with is going to come with an element of risk, and we know that. But we don't say fintechs in the Middle East present this type of a risk. We say fintechs in general present this type of risk. And let me give you an idea of that. One thing I notice fintechs doing a lot when they're starting out is trying to win that one big customer. win that HSBC or win that kind of, you know, Saudi Central Bank or whoever it might be. That's not necessarily the best strategy to go for a number of different reasons. One of those is because clearly that can be very draining on your resource as an organization. It can be very hard for a fintech. They can become overly reliant on that model. But organizations like us who are looking at them and trying to think about whether we want to bring them into our ecosystem, we will instantly analyze the weighting of their customer base. And if we think that you are too aligned as a fintech to one particular customer and they make up too much of your revenue, that's a huge risk factor for us. Yeah, so often we see fintechs turning up on our doorstep saying, we've got Standard Chartered. And we say, who else? Yes, we want to see that. We want to see a matrix. We want to see where you fit into different parts of the ecosystem. And I just kind of add on that as well. For the fintechs in the room, I also think there's a misconception when you go to an Emirates NBD, a large organization, or to a London Stock Exchange group, that you won't get treated as a key strategic partner. That's not true. So for us, when we look at the key and strategic partners, it's not about revenue, it's not about the size of the organization. That's one of a number of factors that we consider. What we're looking for is a number of things that a fintech can have, and it's about growing our business. And if you can demonstrate that in a mature way in terms of the infrastructure for how you're building your business, you can have very, very little revenue and become very, very strategically important to our organization. So I just say, think about that, have confidence about that, and think about when you present your solution to a major organization, think about how you're going to interact with their maturity as a business rather than kind of worrying too much about the size of your revenues.
I like that a lot. You talked at the beginning at the your experience in the region in this market. Has the breadth of organizations, the types of companies that you're dealing with changed dramatically in the sense of, are there more scaled fintechs that you're starting to engage with in the Gulf and wider Middle East?
It's gone in and out, hasn't it? I mean, realistically, in the last 10 years, you've seen a fintech boom in this particularly where we're sitting now, but also in terms of what's going on in Saudi Arabia and some of the other markets. But if you go back to 2014, you saw all these banks that had large operations basically exit. So you kind of seen a bit of a cycle go on here where there was a lot of international experience, knowledge, teams globally set up over here, and then there was a pullback and there was a push forwards. But actually, I think there's a huge knowledge in terms of the growing education that you've got in this market, which is you're now seeing an influx of basically graduate level or, the kind of the 25, 30-year-olds people here who've got an incredibly high education level that they're bringing into the marketplace. A lot of people here, kind of locals in the markets in Kuwait and in, Qatar, these places, they've been educated at the best universities around the world. And then they are understanding the ecosystem that they're working in. They understand how to drive investment. And they understand how to build a business. We recognise that as an opportunity for growing our business too.
Fantastic, that's great. So we've got a few more minutes to run the session. All the things we've heard about now sort of blend into a kind of final part, really. I think we certainly need to talk a little bit about the talent size, the talent opportunity, the talent pool that's in the region. We certainly need to talk also about regulation a little bit. Is government doing enough to get out of the way, but not get out of the way too much, so that the market's still safe for us to interact with? And then again, if you've got any questions, please, now is your chance. We have one. You might need a microphone. Please just keep the question short if we can.
Okay, just one question. Hi, my name is Shadi. I'm coming from Egypt, running a crowd lending platform called Amwell. My question is about expansion. When you can advise a startup to expand outside the region they started in? That's it.
Who would you like to ask that to?
Anyone. All of those are experts.
Maybe Chara, you'd like to have a go at that one.
So if I got the question right, your question is about how can a startup or a fintech expand to another region, right? Okay. I think a couple of things that are already touched upon, right? So I think you need to make sure that you have a decent client base that you can prove to other banks and other regions to say that yes, yours is a mature proposition and you're able to work with that, right? I think that would be really, really key. also understand if your proposition is scalable to other regions. I mean, luckily in the MENA, more or less, you know, you're able to sort of, you know, it's interoperable to a degree. And I think that is something that you definitely need to keep in mind. But at the same time, the regulations are also different. If you look at the ecosystem in Bahrain, it's way forward in terms of, you know, what the regulator is doing there. But over here, it's a little more, you know, it's still evolving in space, right? So I think that is again something that you need to, you know, you need to take a look at. I think those would be two things that come to mind off the top of my mind. If anybody else in the panel wants to add.
Well, I think you're probably best placed, Tan, to answer that one in a way.
To the Chinese culture, speed is essential, right? So we basically try 6 countries in Southeast Asia at the same time.
Right.
You know, instead of one country after the other. But you must make sure you're trying a similar value proposition instead of different things, right? So I think in terms of expansion to market, your usual stuff in terms of hiring the right people, but don't be afraid to try multiple countries. And I think GCC is a great region to start multiple times. The thing that kills fintech is when you run out of cash trying too hard in one country, I think.
Fantastic. All right, so let's move to the sort of the final few minutes. Ahmed, I want to turn to you. Fintechs, it's a new story, it's a new entity, it's big ambitions, big plans. What does the future hold? And how are you using it as a kind of vehicle to create a kind of a modern, vibrant culture against a corporate backdrop? What's the opportunity here for you now?
Well, I think for us it's a transformation thing, right? It's very clear that we have existing business that we need to transform. And we're getting into new ventures that requires a different mindset and different way or methodology of doing that.
Yes.
And it's complex. As you know, many companies start a transformation business and after a few years you don't hear about their achievement anymore. So it's not common that everyone will succeed. So we need to understand what does it take to get there. For us, it's very important to have a clear strategy that has the buy-in of all the management and has the buy-in of the shareholders and the board. That's the first thing we've done for our transformation journey. The second thing is that the leadership. You need to have a leadership that is on top of things. He believes in this transformation and he can work with his team and support them, whether he needs new people or same people, new technology, new tools, resources to be able to deliver that. That's the leadership requirement. And I think at the same time communication is extremely important. Yeah. You need to be able to communicate to your team every week, every month on the progress. You don't set a target that is 3-4 years ahead because half of the people will not be there after a few years.
Yes.
So you need to come and every quarter maybe tell them the news, what are the achievements and what are the things that might be delayed or not working, so you fix it and you move on. So it's not an easy journey. If you have the buy-in of everyone, all the stakeholders, and then you have a clear kind of strategy with support of your team, I think it's doable, and you should be able to do it.
David was talking about the kind of the cloud and the data sort of challenge that exists in the region. Are you able to sort of get the data that you need to innovate, or are you working with the regulator possibly to sort of look at opportunities for open finance and open data?
Look, data is there everywhere. I think the challenge is how to use data and how to look at it in a way that's meaningful and help you to make your decision. Obviously, if you are an incumbent and you don't have your system in order, it's more difficult to extract those data. So that's one of the things that you need to start working on, to clean up your data, to cleanse it, and to come with the data in a meaningful way. The system is extremely important. The system that you have, how you can maximize the benefit of available kind of support and partners that you could have, be ready, have a system that's ready that you can work with any AI, blockchain, whatever comes in place. So you need to be culturally ready with human, at the same time technically be ready to take advantage of any possibility or resources that's out there to maximize the benefit.
Thank you very much. Charu, perhaps we can just sort of come to you for a sort of final word. I think David, somebody else was talking about the value chain a little bit. When you work with a fintech company, you might, you do end up with a potential supplier risk. You don't really quite know necessarily how many customers they've got. how do you see Emirates NBD's role in sort of in ensuring that the new kind of flatter financial services value chain is secure, robust, but also designed and fits well for the customer and what the customers need?
I struggle to hear you there.
Sorry.
So the question is more around how does Emirates NBD
what is your role in building a kind of strong, value chain as the ecosystem, as we move now into kind of ecosystem models, much flatter, not just bank to customer, but lots of different steps along the way. What role do you see as playing in enabling that kind of ecosystem to take off?
So look, I think we are working, also very closely with the regulator. That's one piece of the ecosystem, and I think it's very, it's widely spoken about. But so we work very closely with the central bank and also VARA, for example, the Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority. I mean, these are things very important for the ecosystem. So we work very closely there with them. From an open finance perspective, again, that is what is needed next, in driving this ecosystem further. So, like I mentioned, we're not waiting for the regulation there. What we're trying to do is, we've got our own API soup, and we're trying to experiment there with a couple of the corporate clients to make sure that, we're able to sort of, work on, one-to-one cases to see where this is going, right? Our role primarily is to enable, one of the things that Emirates NBD do, and the reason we're into sort of empowering fintechs and startups, is that we're also very much focused on the country's SME, segment. So for us, each time we partner with a fintech in any shape or form, we're also trying to empower them to say that, yes, we try our best to sort of endorse them if we have worked with them, so that they're also able to, like what we were discussing earlier, banks look for other banks, have you partnered with them and whatnot, right? So we make sure we give them the support, we mentor, we accelerate them as well.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that we see that we do quite effectively in terms of, that's the role that we play. I think if you were to bridge this, where we sit is right in the center, right? So we have the regulator and we have the fintech. So we are doing equal parts there, we're doing equal parts here. And hopefully, that helps the community and the ecosystem to sort of grow further.
Fantastic, good. I must try and wrap up the session, I think, unfortunately, a few minutes left. Ahmed, we'll come to you, and then for closing comments, we'll come to Tan and to Beverly. What does the future hold for you the next 18 months? You've got a sort of strong track record so far with the YAP experiment, some of the other things that you've been doing. What's next in the pipeline, and when we're back here next year, what will it look like for you?
So we have a product roadmap, a digital product roadmap that we're working on. We have links now with UAE Pass, so we're taking down the account opening from 48 hours to 15 minutes, fully activated accounts. The lending will probably remain around 5 days, but we'll probably take it down to about 3 days. We're also linking directly with the DEDs, Departments of Economic Development of Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and possibly some of the free zones. So the documentation is all digitized as well and pulled. So again, it takes that activation time down to almost nothing, just a few minutes. And then again, the product roadmap all has services and products that are geared towards startups and SMEs. So we're talking about things like your VAT calculation. A small business owner to be able to very quickly be able to calculate the VAT and submit it directly to the VAT authority. Bill payments, transfers, wage protection system. These are all within the digital product roadmap. And hopefully within a year's time when we come back, that'll be live and ready, and we can discuss it then.
Fantastic. Yeah. There's a lot going on. Tan, we talked before we started about your sort of program with ADGM. What are your plans for the region? What are you looking for? And what are you hoping to achieve over the next few days while you're here? If you could hear me.
Well, I am aware that UAE, we read a survey that says that UAE's end customers has the highest expectations of a digital bank compared to globally.
Right.
Yeah, and it's 88% compared to 66% that will actually be open to migrate to a neobank. Yeah, and this is even higher than Singapore, which is 70-ish% in terms of migration to a neobank. So we are definitely hoping to service the digital banks here. And together with the digital banks, there will be financial institutions that needs to transform. So we just set up our entity last week. So we're looking forward to doing more here, definitely.
Fantastic. Beverly, perhaps to you for a final word.
Yeah,
Where will we be
Can I talk to the audience member that asked the question?
Yep.
Because
Sorry,
I've been
yes,
sitting
of
here and
course.
thinking about the answers you were given. I want to give you a different answer. Find a partner that's already operating in those industries.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're going to pitch days. Every large institution these days are doing pitches where we'll take pitch after pitch after pitch. And if we hear a good idea, we'll help you get there. And act like an entrepreneur, not like an old institution, right? If you do those 3 things, you will be successful. And just don't give up. I used to say dog with a bone, but people don't like that, so I need a new saying. So if anybody has one that works in the UAE, I will take it. But just don't ever let go of that dream, of your inspiration, and of what you're trying to accomplish.
Fantastic.
And that's how I would end it.
Okay, but if we're here next year with Autonomous, you know,
Yes.
what, or the next 4 days, what are you hoping to kind of meet and see, and you know, where will we be?
Well, for that, we have giant events happening the next 4 days. So there's 12 of us out here, all the executive leadership team. If there's any good idea that you have, if you know anybody who's looking for a technology job, if you know anybody anywhere in the world, because I can hire anywhere, we are looking in order to do that. We also are looking for partnerships, channel experiences. We have a big event at the end of the day. Just find me or find anybody. There's big purple screens with our faces on them. And so just look at the big purple screen, find one of our faces, and come see us. Thank you.
Very good. Great. Well, look, guys, you've heard it here. Some great advice, some very interesting insights, I think, in terms of what's driving the market. There's clearly a lot of energy. So move fast and make good use of the time here. Thanks very much to our panelists. Please give them a warm welcome, a warm thanks. And we'll shortly running our next session looking at regulation. Thanks everybody. Thank you very much.
Not bad with all the noise.
Oh
and
my
the
God, I couldn't hear. I could hardly. Well, it was very difficult to hear.
Simon, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Well done.
Pleasure.
Great.
Very nice
Great.
meeting you.
And,
I'll give you my business card.
we're talking about regulation. It'll be more exciting than it sounds, I can promise you. I'll invite you up, don't worry, it's okay. Sorry. We'll get there, it'll take a couple of minutes, I think. All right, can we ask everyone to take their seats? So, this next session we're going to be talking about rules and regulation and the global regulatory trends. Well, actually, a little bit more about local, regional regulatory trends. I think it's probably better. I think the is actually to have you walk up. Let's have you up there. So I'm going to sit. I'll sit there.